There is no encirclement in Myrnohrad or Pokrovsk. The defense forces are working on expanding logistical corridors there. This was stated by the commander of the 7th Air Assault Corps, Yevhen Lasichuk, on the air of the Marathon, United News. However, the situation in this direction is quite difficult. The Russians are relentlessly infiltrating the neighborhoods of Pokrovsk. In Myrnohrad, they are amassing forces in the south and east of the city and are trying to penetrate the central districts. The situation in Vovchansk has also worsened. The enemy has crossed the Vovcha River and is trying to push our forces out of this city in the Kharkiv region. And near Siversk, things are getting increasingly difficult. In this direction, the Russians once again shot one of our prisoners in the Sviatopokrovsk area. This is being reported by deep state analysts. Meanwhile, in Kupiansk, the situation is gradually stabilizing. Sources for TSN on this section of the front report that this is to the benefit of the Ukrainian defense forces. At the same time, several enemy armies are continuously attacking the front line in the Oleksandrivka and Huliaipole directions. The occupiers are doing everything they can to capture two settlements on the border of Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, Huliaipole and Pokrovsk. Our soldiers are putting up fierce resistance, but the enemy's numbers are overwhelming, and Russian vehicles are exploding by the hundreds in this sector every day. The 423rd Battalion of Unmanned Systems. The Scythian Griffins is one of the units holding back the onslaught of the occupiers here. The fighters admit it's extremely difficult, but they insist that's no reason to give in. In what conditions and how exactly do the heavy bomber pilots of the 423rd Battalion they destroy? The enemy was seen by the film crew of TSN correspondent Oleksandr Motorny. During this segment, a QR code will appear on your screens. This is for collecting donations for drones, equipment, and repairs of remotely piloted systems. Watch.
With a carbine out the window at top speed, they race along the battered roads of eastern Zaporizhzhia every day to their fellow drone operators. Each one takes a position and rushes off. They speed toward the Huliaipole River, which flows through Pokrovsk in Dnipropetrovsk region and through Huliaipole in Zaporizhzhia. To the east of it, for the Scythian Griffins of the 423rd Separate Battalion of Unmanned Systems, the line of combat engagement now runs.
The enemy is advancing very intensively and actively in all directions, especially in this particular area. Huliaipole, because the enemy's objective is Huliaipole, and their goal is to reach Pokrovsk in Dnipropetrovsk region.
The battalion commander does not conceal the Ukrainian defensive line. Around the sector where Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhzhia regions meet, forces from 4 different Russian combined arms armies are attacking simultaneously. And the enemy infantry keeps advancing there without stopping.
They are putting maximum pressure from both sides using a large number of personnel and a significant amount of UAVs. Over the past 2 weeks, the weather has helped them a lot. For literally 2 weeks in a row, there was a very thick fog. Day and night, morning and evening. As you understand, these are our eyes, this is our visibility, this is the active work of our UAVs.
What can you start?
Red waiting for confirmation.
Don't drink.
We can clearly see that small shed. And now, at this very moment, we are just working at our absolute full capacity on the relentless assaults because they truly keep coming and coming without any cessation. They simply do not stop at all. And how long has this been going on? Well, it's been a month, maybe more. More, probably almost 2 months. Is it every day?
Almost every day, yes, constantly. They're assaulting right now.
In the brief breaks between devastating enemy KB strikes, a lone motorcycle swiftly flew into that area, making its way through.
KBs all along the front line. Wherever we sit, KBs are our constant.
With attacks by Russian FPVs swarming over Ukrainian positions almost like a hive.
Oh, it's quickly running away now. I have very carefully pushed it right out. Pushed it out, yes. Pushed it out, yes. When you were walking like this, you can't see.
So, taking advantage of every opportunity, when the fog lifts, the harder crew sends out the vampires to work.
We tie up a couple of them, 2 or 3. Then you can do a little.
In very recent weeks, it was mostly about personnel, holding back fierce assaults and launching concentrations of enemy troops.
Is he there on the spot? Because I haven't seen him. They're both there, both on the spot.
They're moving forward in 2s or 3s, like pencils, so to speak, slowly advancing. Some were stopped, others are coming from behind. Yes, that's it.
That's it, they're right here. They're untying the camera now, sometime at night.
They're gathering together, accumulating within some dugout or building structure, so we will hit them a little bit.
Aim directly for the very middle. See the precise spot. There are actually 4 of them. On our fronts, it's infantry, motorcycles, and very rarely vehicles. Heavy equipment that doesn't make it here so far.
For any enemy movement that the 423rd Battalion's reconnaissance is able to spot, guard assures, either they or their comrades immediately take off. With FPV drones, or they bomb the occupiers with their vampires. But as Barney, the pilot of the heavy bomber from the 423rd Battalion, frankly admits, there are really a lot of Muscovites, and they just don't run out.
There are so many of them, so many troops. That's why they move in small groups to secure a position somewhere to reinforce. They gather together and gradually move forward, but
the number of occupiers the Scythian Griffins assure is no reason not to attack the enemy. Just last month, the warriors of the 423rd Battalion of Unmanned Systems turned over 700 Muscovites into the very best, eliminated them. Reporting from the Pilski sector of the front in Zaporizhzhia, Oleksandr Motorny, Alexander Shian, and Serhiy Shportila, TSN 1+1. Rafon, United News.
And today, once again, we have a reason to thank the volunteers. On December 5th, Ukraine, together with the world, celebrates International Volunteer Day, a holiday established by the UN General Assembly in 1985. In Ukraine, over the past 12 years of war, it has taken on a special, vital significance because the volunteer movement has become like a mobile reserve army and an integral part of national defense. When volunteers provide, in particular, the military with everything they need, from drones and vehicles to gear or medicine, their personal contribution is especially significant. For their volunteer assistance in the development of the volunteer movement, the President honored 45 volunteers with the prestigious Golden Heart Award. 7 Ukrainian children have been brought back home from Russia. At the border, they were met by representatives of the Ombudsman's office. All the children are between 8 and 16 years old, and almost all of them ended up in Russia after the start of the full-scale invasion. Some were taken from then-occupied territories to the aggressor country by their parents or even by strangers, and some had been living in Russia even before 2022. And it was there that they lost their parents. Ukrainian representatives do not conduct direct negotiations with Russia regarding the return of the children. Today's return, for example, happened thanks to a letter from Melania Trump, which, as you may recall, the US president handed to Putin back in August in Alaska, and in which she asked for the children to be returned. Not all of the returned children understand Ukrainian, because they lived in Russia for a long time, having ended up there 4 years ago or even earlier, and the local propaganda has already had its effect. My authorized representatives of the Verkhovna Rada for Human Rights, Dmytro Lubinets, is with us live right now. We'll be able to ask for more details about everything. Good evening, thank you for joining the broadcast.
Good evening, studio. Good evening, Ukraine.
So in what condition, both physical and psychological, did these children return? And is rehabilitation provided for them, and if so, what kind?
Absolutely. After their return, all children go through the Child Rights Protection Center, which is a structural unit of our institution. There, a multidisciplinary team first assesses the psychological state in which the children have returned, what is happening with their families, who needs additional social support, and what needs to be done by state authorities to ensure the children can recover as quickly as possible. Thank you. They have reintegrated, so to speak, into Ukrainian society. I will be honest, there are no particular complaints regarding their physical condition. The only thing is, there was one girl. How she ended up on the territory of the Russian Federation at all is unclear. She was living in Ukraine together with her father. After the Russian Federation launched its full-scale aggression, the girl and her father came under Russian shelling. Both were wounded. They were taken to the territory of the Russian Federation, where they received medical assistance, but the father died. And the girl was left alone in the territory of the Russian Federation. Her documents had already been prepared, and she was essentially being sent to a Russian orphanage. And at this point, I was approached. Relatives and close ones contacted the Ukrainian ombudsman, and we helped to bring the girl back. We also brought back 2 twin boys. In the same way, they ended up in the territory of the Russian Federation because of the start of Russian aggression. They were living with their mother in Ukraine. Then, under coercion, as far as we know, the mother left for the Russian Federation with her 2 sons, and unfortunately, the mother died there. And so the 2 twins were also being prepared to be placed in a Russian orphanage. Similarly, the boys' biological aunt reached out to us, and we brought them back. To be honest, Ukraine only sees the final stage when the children are physically returned to Ukraine. In reality, this is a long-term effort, complex, multi-layered, and challenging. It involves many intermediaries, and our institution was directly responsible for all these children. We are immensely grateful, truly. We have support and special attention from the First Lady of the United States. She helped us, and our traditional communication channels and intermediaries also assisted, because the return of each child required separate documentation and the preparation of an individual package. As for the documents and individual communications, the Russian side decided to group them together, and then, so to speak, return them all at once. But in reality, the return of each of these children took many months. And
So could you please tell us, you mentioned Melania Trump and the letter that actually helped bring these children back. Can you share any details? Was it a specific list of these children, or was it a general request to return children? And in general, is there any universal mechanism for such situations? Is Ukraine trying to get its children back?
thank you very much for your question. In fact, it is a key one. For some reason, everyone in the world thinks that if the return of Ukrainian children has started, it means that some universal approach or universal mechanism is working, one that delivers effective results. In reality, that's not the case. Every time it's a separate story. Every child is a separate story, separate negotiations, a separate set of documents. Regarding the involvement of the US and Melania Trump personally, first of all, we are very grateful to her for actually raising this issue at her level. It's not just a letter. What was shown publicly is just part of it. There is also a lot of work that, at least as of today, remains outside the public eye, so to speak. But that doesn't mean it's any less effective or less important to us, on the contrary. But we will probably be able to share many of the details after the war is over and all our Ukrainian children have returned. Now,
Finally, allow me to ask one more brief and delicate question. The film crew, as well as Yasin, who welcomed these children, noticed that almost all of them speak Russian. Do they understand Ukrainian? And what is even more important, perhaps even more so than that, has propaganda had time to influence them, telling them that Ukraine is the enemy and so on? Is there any kind of adaptation program? What in general awaits these children next? Do you perhaps know what plans their families have?
I want to reassure everyone, no matter how hard Russian propaganda tries, they are not succeeding in reprogramming Ukrainian children against Ukraine. We can see this not by the language they speak. It's understandable that when children, especially very young ones, spend several years communicating exclusively in Russian and are under pressure, both the teachers at the schools they attend and the people around them, it's clear that all the news, everyone there communicates in Russian, because if you speak Ukrainian, at the very least, you could be physically punished, and at worst, you could be accused of being a Ukrainian spy and thrown in prison. All the more so because this also applies to Ukrainian children and teenagers. That's why the children speak Russian. But we see that when the children see they're being greeted with our Ukrainian flags, it's very easy to see their genuine reaction. They all start to smile. They all start running forward, hugging their relatives and loved ones. Russian propaganda definitely didn't scare them. They weren't afraid to come to Ukraine. It really does take some time for them to remember their Ukrainian language. No one is going to pressure them. And believe me, after we talk with the children, we constantly accompany and monitor the process of their reintegration. Yesterday, during the visit of the president of Cyprus to Ukraine, we had a bilateral meeting, and there were 8 children there whom we had also recently brought back. We announced this to Ukrainian society, showed it. It happened there a few months ago. 2 months ago, all the children were speaking Ukrainian. Yesterday, there were absolutely no problems at all. They all came wearing vishivankas, even though no one told them to wear them. This is their own message from the children. Such a sincere one, you know. On the contrary, coming back from the territory of the Russian Federation, they want to show that they are Ukrainians, and they will start speaking our melodious Ukrainian language as quickly as possible.
Language. Thank you for these clarifications and for this information. The Verkhovna Rada Commissioner for Human Rights, Dmytro Lubinets, is with us live to talk about the return of another 7 Ukrainian children.